Ingezonas Tudane be Babatenas Dudley Hunli Yane Residential School se Behanas Inecha Babe Babatenas Dudley Tudane ke Chilkene Eneza Babat at Enausin Suchot Yane Baba Hatuten Bahundo Anijin Hawa Tabe Masin Sayatni Ingez Yanin Jan Saindilne Enewa Hawa Masin Sayatni Masi.
Thank you, Fred. I'm going to call on Jolene Prince to come in to do it. Prayer song, sorry. My mind just went blank. Thank you.
Before I start, I just want to tell you guys that I'm frozen in fear right now. And I thought about this since Aileen asked me to come today. And I just want you to know that I'm just speaking just from my heart. I didn't come here with no speeches or prepared for anything because I just want you to see my truth. And I'm a survivor. I made it this far. And I'm just so proud to find my voice. I've been thinking, I went to Lee Jack School and did the ceremony there, and went and did the fireweed walk with the alternate justice, and went to Dakelh Dene School, and to Binche, and now here. So I've been doing this all week, and I've been hearing all your beautiful stories. I just wanted to share with you what I thought was a prayer, but it's words. And I'm a survivor, and I made it here. And I just say to Creator and God of your own understanding, and pray really hard today that we come in peace. I am from Dakelh Dene territory, and I'm from Dakelh territory. I am Cree, and I'm proud of it. And I'm Carrier, and I'm proud of it. And I'm Irish, and I'm proud of it. And I'm Ukrainian, and I'm proud of it. And I'm Scottish, and I'm proud of it. I'm a Heinz 57, and I'm proud of it. When people come up to me, my teacher once told me, he said, Jolene, your own people are gonna hurt you. And it's true. They have. And I forgive you. I'm forgiving you, love. I hold nothing against that because I just already knew that these 215 people, these beautiful souls that came and rose up today was for no apparent reason at all. They brought you all here today. I just don't want to get mascara eyes. But those beautiful souls, and I was singing at Dakelh Dene and talking and telling stories at Dakelh Dene, and I thought to myself, that's 140 students cleared off of our land, not including David Hoy. If we added that, that's 200 of our purest children, and my daughter would sit in that. I couldn't imagine not having my daughter. And my daughter told me, she said, did Grandma stay there in Lee Jack? And I said, yeah, she stayed in the dorms. Could you imagine not having your own bed? You're so scared you can't even sleep by yourself, you sleep with me. Could you imagine Grandma 2 years by herself in a place unknown? And I always hear like, oh, get over it. I can't. I can't imagine children not coming home. And it's not just the 215, it's Lee Jack and it's O'Grady and it's all these other places, you know, that I've heard about. But I know this, that I have to honor all those sides of me, the white and the Indian. I just wanted to say to you that I love you all. And I am finding my way. I am finding my way through all of this. And this is my way. This might not be a traditional carrier dress. This might not be traditional carrier jewelry, and it might be Cree. But this is my way. This is my own spiritual identity. And I'm not gonna let anybody take that away, because I've worked 15 years to get this and fight for this and walk through this hurt. But I know that you can do this, and we can all do it together. So just take a moment. And I went to Roman Catholic, and I'm so happy our Father is here today. If he's here, I can't see him, but if he's been drumming and singing with us with Sister Davina. They're human. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And one of the teachings I got from the churches, before you sit here and judge any of us, is he who has not sinned can cast the first stone. I love everybody for who they are, whether they be murderers, pedophiles, whatever, because they all have a story. I place myself in those 215 children's shoes, and I just think to myself, how could people judge each other? How could we judge each other when we make mistakes because we're simply human, having a spiritual experience here on this beautiful Mother Earth? We're all religions coming together, and it all ends in that big, vast body of ocean, which ends in prayer. No one is higher than anyone, no one is lower than anyone. We're all equal, whether we be black, brown, yellow, white, it doesn't matter. Because we all go in that circle of life. And if you look on my back of my head, there is a medicine wheel. And it has all the red-skinned people, the yellow-skinned people, white-skinned people, and black-skinned people. And we're all circled. We're all circled. If we mess up all those colors, we'd all be shades of gray and beige. And I was so scared to come here to talk to you today. But I want you to know that I found my voice. And I'm not going to stay silent anymore. I'm not. But I am going to be very respectful to you, and I'm going to talk to you how I want to be talked to. We all have our differences, but right now, it's time. The European fur traders, that's back then. The natives, that's back then. We, as Aboriginal people, are just as racist as the white people. And I have to honor that and bring the truth to you today. We can't talk like that anymore. How can we gain respect from the white people if we're saying that they're like higher than us? How can the white people talk like that to the native when they're not higher than us? They're equal. That fur trader is in the past. That's not us today. That native is in the past. That's not us today. But we still honor all the hurt. And this is like going to be a very big event. We hurt each other. Now we have to learn to work together and heal together. I miss your hugs. I miss your touches. I miss everything. And those who feel very uncomfortable being touched, exercise that and break down that trauma. You're going to hear a lot of stories, and I'm so glad that those face your fears and tell those stories. And I really encourage you, everybody, to mingle with each other and hear each other's stories. Hear the residential school stories. Hear the fur traders' stories. I know that we're prim and proper sometimes, and I see the Europeans, which is on my side, want to help, and they do make a difference. This necklace I'm wearing is my boyfriend's necklace, and he's white. And he made this, and I'm like, oh my God. And I wear it so proud because it sits on my voice. And he's helped me heal a lot. So I just want to sing a lullaby song for you, for all those 215 beautiful souls that just rose for you today. Rose. So we could walk together and heal together. But before you speak out of anger and resentment, just take a breath. This great breath of life that we got today. You got to wake up this morning. You got to see your children this morning. So I just want to say, thank you for hearing my one voice, just my one voice. So I'm going to sing the Sky Woman song. It's Cree. And just be open to that, okay? It's just Cree. And the Cree teachings in me come here today to awaken those carrier teachings. So please don't hurt me no more. Don't hurt each other anymore. My name is Tumteke Tibalyan Ote Wache. The first name is in carrier and it was given to me by Sam Muskwa, a Cree man. Tumteke Tibalyan, Eagle Star Woman. Ote Wache was given to me by David Blacksmith. And that means heart of the mountain, heart of that mountain. My name is Eagle Star Woman, heart of that mountain, heart of this community. Like, help me. So I sing a little bit of Cree today, and be open to that because drugs and alcohol was not our way, and we seem to have adopted that medicine, that black medicine. And I'm asking for you today to go out there and adopt your traditional medicines. That may be Devil's Club, whatever it is, just grab it, because that land is super important, because we heal on that land. It's not our land. We watch over that land, and we want to share that land with you, and we want to heal on that land. So don't cut any more of those trees down. We need it. We need to heal on that land. So I sing the Sky Woman song. And just be open to adopting these new teachings that are going to come in to only make us better and stronger people of this town, Fort St. James, of this KO, Nakasli Waden, to come together and create a village of family. I love you. This is Sky Woman's lullaby. And she comes from up there, and she sings this lullaby, and she rocks with Rainbow Woman, and she rocks our children to sleep. I'm asking her to rock this difference and to lay all of this to sleep so that we may heal and let go and let God. And if it's really loud, I'm sorry. Sorry for the raccoon eyes. Okay. I'm just gonna take a breath. Ame Majada. Wrong song. Sorry, I'm so scared. Grandmothers and grandfathers, watch over me. Oki simaha wasquayo, hey, 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 hey. Oh, let me now. Way, oh, hey, oh, hey. Way, oh, hey, oh, hey, 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 hey. Way, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey. I could see them coming on our boats. They're canoeing over these little ones, and this is my gift to you. Oki simaha wasquayo, hey, 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 hey. Oh, let me now. Way, oh, way, oh, hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hey, 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 hey. Way, oh, way, oh, hey, 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 hey. Thank you for hearing me. Snachavia Yakasahatun and Tian Ingesi to Bang Isi Awetsa Nanu Stenla. All my relations.
Thank you, Jolene. Very powerful words from a very strong young lady. We have a regional AFN regional chief, Terry TG, is going to say some opening remarks, and he's going to also help with the emceeing the event today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Terry at this time.
Dene's up, Zeku's up, Sky's up. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the territory Nak Asley within the membership, citizens of Fort St. James. It's good to be home. As you well know, I was raised here and went to that school up there before it was Nasteo. Or not Nasteo, Nakalban. And I was raised on Weld Street, Low Weld Street Reserve. Chiefs, hereditary chiefs, mayor, guests. I just want to acknowledge all of you that are here today to remember the 215 children from the Kamloops Residential. In the background, you could hear children laughing and screaming. Imagine if that just went silent. As I drove in here today through the community, on the highway, we've seen the many hearts, the 215, recognizing the 215 that were found in Kamloops Indian Residential School. Imagine if those were graves. That's a reality. That's the reality that what we are dealing with today in terms of what we have all known here. I see many of you from Dakelh Dene, relatives, friends, survivors of Jack Residential School, of Kamloops Indian Residential School, of many of the residential schools out there. We knew this story. We knew that there were graves out there. And it was told in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of 2015. So quite obviously, we're not done with that truth part. The finding of the 215 children is just the beginning. And perhaps moving forward is a search for more children at these residential schools. Perhaps what was surprising was the sheer number of 215. But we certainly know that number is going to get higher as they search more residential schools across this country. In the 150 years of the residential school system, there were approximately 139 residential schools across this country. Some of them are older than this country. This country is 152 years old. Some of these schools back east are older than this country. And during that time, approximately 150,000 plus children, Indigenous children, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis were brought to these residential schools, stolen. And this is nothing short of genocide. If you look at the definition of genocide, it's not only death, but it's assimilation. Between government, church, and the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the three parties conspired together to steal our children and bring them to these residential schools, which were described as prisons, jails, concentration camps. That's what this was. We can't mince words. It's genocide. And that's the sobering facts that this country has to grapple with. Is that what was imposed for 150 years is genocide and assimilation. And yet Dakelh is still here and proud. Many First Nations are still here and proud and survived these genocidal acts. However, it continues on today. We still see it. We still see it in the child care welfare system. There are more children in child welfare than there were at the height of the residential school system. And it continues to permeate today in the policing system, the judicial system. The jails are filled with our people. And why is that? Because all of this All of the genocidal policies are steeped in racism. Why did they send us to these schools? Why did they put us on reserves? Why were we taken off our lands? Quite simply because it was racism. We were less than. And that's the terrible part of colonization that we are still grappling with. And whether you like it or not, 152 years, that's only 2 or 3 grandfathers ago. This country is very young in the grand scheme of things. And yet in 152 years, what has been imposed on Indigenous peoples, First Nations, has been nothing short of just sheer genocide. So, as we heard from many of the settlers and many of our friends who are here today, where do we go from here? We have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, well over 90 recommendations that have not been properly resourced and implemented. Let's start there. With all levels of government, including municipal governments, to adopt the reconciliation recommendations, the TRC. The federal government to get out of the way. We currently still have court cases against our Indigenous people. And this is the Child Caring Family Society and the Assembly of First Nations court cases that demonstrated, and we won, and showed that the government of Canada were discriminating against our children in our communities. And the federal government continues to fight that decision. Accept it, get out of the way, properly resource our communities so we can get our children the proper resources they need. Fully implement and plan Recommendation 71 to 76 to find our children, to repatriate our children that are in graves, the missing children, well over 4,100. That number could be even higher. That's where we go from here. I've been asked that question by not only our Indigenous people, by all walks of life here in Canada. Where do we go from here? How do we say we're sorry? I believe we all appreciate our Indigenous peoples across this country, appreciate the outpouring of support, heartache, anger. It's all a part of healing. But where we go from here is to pressure all levels of government to adopt the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to adopt the United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, to acknowledge the sovereignty of Nak-Azli Wutden. That's where we go from here. We had, at the time of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, we had some denominations of religion that operated these residential schools that did come forward and say sorry, but we didn't have the Catholic Church say sorry or was accountable. So I think we really have to move beyond also that sheer statement of saying I'm sorry. That doesn't change the fact that we have many children in care. That doesn't change the fact that we're under-resourced. That doesn't change the fact that our missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls, issue of racism and the treatment of not only Indigenous peoples, but all walks of life. That's the sobering fact. So what can you do as an average citizen? Is to acknowledge the 215, acknowledge that many of us that are here are survivors of not only residential school, but survivors of intergenerational trauma of residential schools. And that we're still dealing with genocidal policies that are still imposed on our Indigenous peoples. I'm sure glad that this has been a moment of reckoning and everybody has woken up. These were the stories that were shared during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's not going to take a report to check it all off. We're unraveling 150 years, multi-generations of abuse. So as we move forward, this is going to take generations to deal with. So I thank you, Chief Prince, Council, for inviting me here today and allowing me to say a few words. And thank you, Jolene, for telling your truth about who you are and the song. And I think what we're seeing here today is this outpouring of grief, anger, but more importantly, love for one another is the reason why you're here. Is that question, what do I do next, or what can I do? First of all, let's start to deal with our relations here between Nakaslin and Fort St. James. We always know that there's been an underlying issue of racism in this community and in this province and in this country. So let's deal with that. Let's have systemic change, as I said, with all these levels of government to acknowledge the past wrongs and make things right so our children aren't left vulnerable. Fully implement law that really brings back our First Nations to our proper place in terms of decision making. And that is really reflected in the United Nations Declaration. But I think most of all, it is that caring. What these 215 children did was woken us all up. Far too often we become too complacent about this relationship. And perhaps we have to put good energy and effort. Sure, it is sins of our fathers, but we really have an opportunity to make it right. And that's why you're all here today, is to realize that there is a real positive that can come out of this. And let's not misplace our anger. Let's find solutions. I appreciate Chief and Council has a good relationship with Fort St. James Mayor and Council. We need more of that. And the good relations between many of the citizens that we call in this place Fort St. James, Nakaslin. And once again, it's good to come home to the place where I was raised. And I think Lillette and Suga, are they wrong? I was trying to avoid them. But thank you for the birthday wishes. But I just want to thank you all and thank you, Fred, for that much needed prayer for the best way forward in terms of this very difficult time that we're going through, but it's needed. It's needed now more than ever. So as your MC, I suppose, yeah, we'll be doing the Rhoda Greg, have the event information. Yep, it's come. And then we'll go to the welcoming song. Chief Aileen, Bev, I know Bev is here.
What I've heard in the last 3 days is reconciliation. I'm Tomasio. We're warriors. There's no reconciliation until there's justice. And that's a fact. Dakelh Dene, Dakelh Dene, ladies and gentlemen and people of this earth. We're here to talk about lost children. And I disagree with that. Those children were never lost. Their families kept them in their hearts, and they told their stories year after year after year. Those children were never forgotten. They were trampled on and dismissed by Canadian society, but they were not forgotten. We never surrendered after the atrocities and the genocide. And it's really hard lots of times not to let your anger surface. But just for an example, anybody that has no family that's ever had anything to do with residential school, just think of this. Fort St. James would not have one school if you were subjected to the treatment we got. You would be expected September 1st to surrender your children, and if you were a good Christian, you were allowed under privilege to have them back for Christmas. They weren't allowed home for Easter. They'd come back at the end of June for 2 months, where you'd try to undo the damage that was done to them over the summer. We under that torment, we maintained our tradition in secret. Like I said, most of the teaching I learned were done in whispers. The story my mom told to keep alive, because she was worried that it would be forgotten, was of 3 little girls, and she said they were from somewhere around Finley Forks or Fort Graham or somewhere. And they used to be starving, so the 3 of them would sneak out at night and they'd steal bread from the kitchen. And none of the students would tell on them because they knew these kids were starving. So the nuns put a little bit of rat poison in the bread at night. And they killed all 3 of them. They thought it would just make them sick so they could find out who was stealing bread. And they killed all 3 of those girls. And I didn't hear that story once. I heard it at least once a year from my mother to ensure that we never forgot those 3 girls. There's work to be done. But it's got to be done in a manner that recognizes that in 2000, prior to 205 or 210 years ago, we didn't need Canadian society. Our healing's got to be based on 250 years ago. We're not going to get some prime minister, some Horgan. Oh, by the way, Horgan just announced that he's granting First Nations access to their ancestral lands. That's reconciliation. But anyway, I just really want to thank you for being here, and I want to say my name is I'm Tomasio. And we're going to make sure that there's no more hurt, and we're not going to stand easy until this matter's taken care of in a manner that's agreed to by all First Nations in this world. Merci. Merci.
The song we're singing is from Dakelh Dene. Dakelh Dene. This place, Dakelh Dene. Everything in this place. When you guys hear the word "what end," it's really hard to describe it in English. You know, a lot of the times we're fighting over interpretation over the Dakelh language. Dakelh Dene. I asked an elder one day, what does "what end" mean? He said, "What end" means "what end." So I snuck over to another elder and said, "What does "what end" mean?" He said, "Well, if you want to put it in English, I guess it kind of means like place. That place. But it doesn't just mean place. It means the grass, the dandelions, the trees, the willows, the insects, the mosquitoes, the black flies, the trees, the leaves, the wind, the water, the rocks, the sand. Everything in that place is what then." What in ne? Ne means people, or it refers to people. What the ne? Nakasli what the ne? Stella what the ne? The people of those places. Salah, my hands. North end, look at it. Dasni. In our Batlat system, when we give away our things, we give it away. We don't expect nothing in return. That's how they made that song. They told everybody, look at my hands. I give you everything I have. And this is us putting our hands together, our drums together, our voice together for those people. For all of our people right across Canada.
Thank you. Merci to the drummers, and it's really important, and as sort of I said, the music, our clan songs were learned in secret during the time of residential school. And it was our languages. There was a teaching, it was that oral history. And speaking of oral history, that's what we're seeing now is that truth of that oral history of survivors of residential school, that there was a grave over here, or this child was here one day, is gone the next. Or that most troubling was, from my community, I heard of some of the survivors saying, yeah, as older children, we had to dig the graves. So that's, really part of that truth telling and the oral history of survivors. So moving along, I'd like to call upon Chief Aileen Prince to words.
Thank you, Terry. I had to write it out. I can't, my words are really hard to come out right now. So, and I wrote this out and I cried and I cried and I cried. And this has been the hardest thing that I've had to write so far in my life. But I'm going to read it to you because this is why I wrote it, from my heart. Welcome to Nakas-Liwatan territory. My name is Aileen Prince. I'm a daughter of Nick and Irene Prince. My mom has been gone 25 years today. I'm really calling on her strength and my dad's strength today. I belong to the Lasilu clan. Thank you for joining us in honoring and remembering the 215 children found at Kamloops Residential School. We're here to bear witness to the truth and to sing our children home. This day is for us to share our grief, tears, stories, and songs. We also want all the children lost to us to know we will find them. They're not forgotten. I would like to welcome all the chiefs, hereditary chiefs, clan leaders, survivors, descendants, and all of our friends and allies that have come today to help us to grieve this atrocity. When this news broke last Thursday, I cried, I wept, and I've been crying ever since. And the more I hear, the more my tears come to my throat and they stay there. And the words are really hard to come out. I was horrified and heartbroken, but I was also glad that they were found. I was glad that they were finally going to be able to tell their story, and they would be laid to rest with honor and ceremony and love, and not in pain and fear. I raised my hands to Kamloops Sequep community for surrounding these children in love and care. My heart and thoughts are with them every waking moment as they go through the process of dealing with the crimes that were visited upon these children by the government, the Catholic Church, and the RCMP. The government, RCMP, and the church need to be held accountable for their actions that led to these monstrous crimes. There should be no rest amongst our people until this has been recognized as crimes in our own country and as crimes against humanity by the world. The United Nations must take part in revealing the full extent of this cover-up and hold Canada and the Pope, the Vatican, accountable. The fact that they knew this happened and chose to keep silent. This speaks volume about a country and a worldwide organization that espouses to love people and follow the teachings of a man named Jesus. These people got to go home and proclaim their good works. The blood on their hands and an evil in their hearts was hidden. Their hideous secrets are now laid bare. My father went to Lijac. 2 of his brothers died there. He never told us much about it. He wrote about it, but he never talked about it very much. It was very hard for him to tell his story. But the little we did know, the little we did hear, was horrendous, heartbreaking. These were children. These were children. I look at my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and I think how my soul would be torn from me if I had to endure what these parents had to endure for these lost children, knowing that their children suffered so much and would never come home. So many of the people here today attended residential school and were raised by someone who attended residential school. This is not ancient history. The last school closed in 1997. We know we have friends and allies with us from the non-Indigenous community, and we want to thank you for standing with us. I know you can never feel what this feels like, and will continue to feel like as we reveal the true extent of these hidden atrocities across Canada. We ask that your voice be heard. Don't be silent. Speak the truth, and make your government and churches speak the truth. The truth is there. Don't deny it. I encourage everyone to take advantage of the healers we have here now and the ones you can access in your communities. This is a heavy burden to carry, and connecting with others and sharing this sorrow will help. Take care of yourselves and your families and hold your children close. This is going to be a dark time for us, but we will be building our strength as we deal with what is to come. We will stand together as never before in our history until justice is finally achieved. Look at all the Dakelh people. We're standing together in our community, knowing that we have a hard road ahead of us, because we know this is just the beginning. And we know that when the light gets shone on Lejac, we know there's going to be something else found there too. We will be recognizing that we do not need to fear the churches anymore. We do not need to take a back seat to what the government wants. We are not going to be grieving in the shadows. We're not going to remain quiet or speak softly. And we're not going to stop looking until all the children are found. Oh, it's up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just first want to say thank you for being here. Your presence shows the support and the strength of our people gathering. This is what we do when we need each other. This is what we do when we need each other's strength. And this is what we do when we need to encourage each other. I want to say thank you to Chief Aileen for this invitation and for the leadership she's shown to gather us together, to have this moment to be together and to have our grieving together, I think is very important. I just want to read to you what I have in my notice to community, because it applies here, and I think it applies through a lot of what everybody is going through right now. And just to share that us and Chief, Council, and Administration recognize and acknowledge that with the discovery of the graves of the 215 children at the Kamloops Residential School site, that members and survivors are sad, angry, and hurt. To the families whose loved ones never came back from residential school, we are deeply saddened for your loss. The trauma that was experienced at these schools is felt today through intergenerational abuse. Be comforted, though, that through the strength and resilience of our people, the abuse is being stopped. Many of us who are making better choices to say no to alcohol and drugs that we use to numb our pain. One by one and day by day, we can create a better and happier future that is full of peace and joy rather than pain and suffering. Stay strong and full of courage. We will get through this too. Choose not to let the anger and the bitterness of what happened in those schools to steal your peace and happiness. Ask God to take the hurt and the pain and replace it with love and joy. God can do that for you if you ask Him. And when I let my brother know that this event was planned, he sent me something in an email, and I asked permission to read it out to you today. And a lot of what he said in his email were the very same things that I wanted to say, but I couldn't find the words. And so I'm just going to read you this email that was sent to me by my brother Ed. My dear Sister Beverly, thank you for the notice of the ceremony for the 215 children located in burial grounds on the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. We should remember that some of our own community's children were sent there. We should honor their memories. Beverly, the following are just a few words I want to share. Like everyone else, I am deeply disturbed and angered by the 215 grave sites of Indigenous children. Their burial sites have brought back the deepest buried emotions and trauma I carry about my experience, and that of our mom and dad, our siblings, and that of all our relatives and friends in Lejac, who for no other reason than being an Indian child was sent there. The 215 children speaking from the silence of their burial grounds are speaking directly to each and every one of us to not forget them, to remember them, to cherish them, and to love them. There are many more, including at the residential school we attended. We need to know the names of each of them, who their families are, and the communities they came from. We need to know how each of them died and why they were buried at the residential school sites. We should not forget them. From their burial grounds, they have broken through the dark walls of indifference. All our hearts are broken as we grieve for them. There are many of us whose anger, bitterness, frustration, sadness, and loneliness will have crashed to the surface once again, the trauma barely contained. We have never truly understood the magnitude and depth of the traumas in ourselves, in our families, and in our communities, but we see it played out each and every day in the physical and lateral violence we witness. We have all seen it, lived it, we know it, it hurts. We are right in our anger to governments whose self-serving and genocidal laws, policies, and practices put us there to kill the Indian among our people, to sever the connection to our families, our siblings, our languages, our cultures, and our lands. We need to also recall that all of us are surviving, living with, and managing the traumas from our own respective experiences in Canada's Indigenous residential school system, each and every day. This includes the many from all of our Dakelh Dene, Sastutne, Putsuit, and Narut Dene communities who went to Lejac or to other residential schools, and all of their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The impacts of the traumas are truly intergenerational. Our past road has not been easy, and the future will continue to be challenging. However, our deep Dakelh resilience and our resolve, though challenged, will help us overcome. Our people will turn to many different places in their search for answers and maybe healing, to help strengthen who we are and where we come from as Lasden Dakelh. for our survival as Indigenous people, and for our well-being and dignity. With this, then, we can turn to government and churches to work with us as individuals, as families, and as Dakelh peoples and communities. Canada's systemic racism must be dealt with real, honest, and meaningful solutions. As Dakelh people, it is our individual and collective responsibility to act on what we have. With the gifts we carry, we should not be afraid to call on others about the traumas, the hurts we live with, and to call on their help wherever and however we can. We will to continue to get through this day by day. Maybe one day each of us will have forgiveness in our hearts. We are blessed to walk in the hallowed footsteps of our ancestors, truly one of the greatest gifts they left for us as Dakelh Dene, the simple word Nok-esi. It is love. We should never be afraid to say Nok-esi or Nok-esi to each other, to our families and our friends. With my deepest respect, Nok-esi, your brother Ed. I was struggling on what to say, and when I seen this email, it just captured everything that I know, the message of what I wanted to give. And I think I'm gonna close with a reading this morning. Sorry, it's just not working for me. So this is from Psalm 85, or portions of Psalm 85, which is my reading this morning. And it says, "Mercy and truth have met together, righteousness and peace have kissed. Truly, truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall..." It's really dark, sorry. "And righteousness shall look down from heaven. Yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Righteousness will go before him and shall make his footsteps our pathway." It was so fitting, and so I just wanted to share that passage with you and to say, don't let what was discovered create in you hatred and anger, because that's what they taught us to be. That's what they taught us. That's what they taught us to have, anger. They taught us to have hatred. And we need to change that for ourselves and for our future. And we're turning the tide. All these young mothers and young families here whose kids never see alcohol and drugs or cigarettes. That's how we change the future of our people, so that our kids don't see what we grew up with. And that's how we create a happier future and a better future for all of us and all our neighbors. And thank you to Mayor Motion and Council as well for your being here as well. And we can build and we can get stronger together, no matter what the color of our skin. And we need to just be able to start respecting each other and be able to use our kind words more often. There's just too much hatred in this world that we need to take every chance we have to share good words with each other. and to tell each other that we love each other. And I want to say thank you, Jolene. Your word for let go, let God really touched my heart, and I think that's our answer. We lean on our own understanding too often. We don't lean on God, but He's always been there, and He's always going to be there. And all you need to do is ask Him for help, and He can help you. Amen.
And many of my relatives told me the stories of how they made it to Dakelh Residential School, either by horse-drawn carriage or by plane. And it was the RCMP taking many of my relatives to Dakelh. And what they also did there was, many years ago, since Dakelh only went up to a certain grade, I think it was grade 9 or 10, the rest of the students had to go to Kamloops Indian Residential School. And the other reason why some of our children from up here went to Kamloops Indian Residential School or Williams Lake St. Joseph's or Mission was that if you were from a big family, I'm from a family of 7, many of our families as much as 10 or 12, they'd break up the family unit and send you to different residential schools, some to Port Alberni. That's the way genocide works. They break the family unit. And some of our own people had to repatriate themselves and our own families to come back and get to know each other as children and later on in life as adults. But that trauma stays with you. I certainly know that, because many of those that went to school with my older brothers and sisters that went to residential schools are no longer here. They're my first cousins. Many have died because of suicide. Many have died because of the trauma of residential school. Far too many. More than usual. And like many statistics in this country, Indigenous peoples have a higher rate of suicide. And that's a direct result of residential schools. So in remembrance of all those have gone not only in Dakelh but elsewhere that died as a result of not only in the schools but after the schools, we remember them, and that's what the Truth and Reconciliation was about. Some of them are up in the graveyard here that went to residential school. So I know it's a difficult thing to talk about, but I nevertheless, it is very important to talk about these things. So I'd like to call upon Not Lay representative. I know he's doing a video right there.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Kittle.
Howdy, everyone. I just want to acknowledge Naka's lead territory, and thank you for having me here. And it's an honor to be asked by Nadle Watan to come speak on behalf of Chief and Council. They're busy and with our own business, lots of things going on there, and they send their deepest regrets that they can't be here today, and they sent me to speak. So it's an honor for me to do that here, to speak in regard to the 215 children that were found at Kamloops Residential School. And I was not prepared to do this today, but I willingly accepted, because I have some things to say on the subject. And I just want to say thank you for all the people who have spoken so far and sharing your stories and your feelings so openly and so candidly. That's very healing. It's really helping me a lot. So my dad went to residential school at Lejac, very briefly, and his dad before him. And you know, I hear the stories from them. I guess that makes me a residential school survivor, or I'm not sure what the lingo is for calling that, but what that entails is that you grow up with alcohol around you. You grow up with lots of yelling and verbal abuse. You grow up around fighting and drinking and drug use and all these repercussions of the residential school. They're so evil, and it's like dropping a pebble in a pond. The ripples go out, and they still affect us, you know, as to here today. And these 215 children that they found, that's only the ones that you know about. That's only, like, there's other children there that were burned in stoves. My uncle back in Notley, he told me he went to Kamloops Residential School very briefly when he was 4 years old. Him and I were up one night late, and he was crying. And he was telling me, trigger warning, this is really disgusting, but he was telling me when they would go to bed at night, the guy that was taking care of him would come around and be like, yeah, look, I gotta check you out and see if you're clean, and he would inspect them. And you know what I'm talking about. So there's some really disgusting things that happened there. You have like the Queen of England and the Roman Catholic Church, and then these governments that instate apartheid protocols in other people's countries. And you know, it doesn't really have to do with skin color. It has to do with human trafficking in a way. And you don't hear a lot of people talk about human trafficking, but you're hearing it more and more. And they call it, oh, it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. Well, I say it's a conspiracy of silence. And the only way out of pain is to turn around and run straight through it. And so, in regards to these 215 children, it's so heartbreaking. And I guess it's so surprising for some people, but I can't say that I'm that surprised, because I've dug into this history a lot growing up. I've listened to the stories. I've heard all these things. Growing up, I know a lot more than what I'm telling you. My grandfather, when in Lejac, they had a room they would stick you in. If you got sick, they'd just stick you in there. And if you got better, you got better. If you died, you died. Johnny Kitlow Sr., my grandfather, he was stuck in that room. And he's pretty strong, that man. He got better. He's got a strong heart. And I think as survivors, all of you people here are strong like that. You all have that strength. You're strong people. They tried to break you, but they couldn't. And you're still here. You did survive. You know, and so I don't want to take too much time here. I'm not the chief. I'm not on council. I'm just the communications guy. I am Frog Clan Dakelh, and I'm proud to be Dakelh. And you know, I am Irish too. And you know, like my grandmother's from County Fermanagh, Northern Ireland. And in Ireland, they're finding mass graves of children from things just like this too. It happened to them. You read books, and that's the way you educate yourself. That's the way you protect yourself. And it's history. History is where the answers lie. And we need as Dene people, we need an alternative historical chronicling to start happening. We don't have Alexander Mackenzie. We got Nanguat. We don't got Simon Fraser. We got Keilcho. And so maybe out of this tragedy, you know, good things will come. Maybe it will bring us together in the right way to take the right steps in the right directions to start to heal, to start to begin to to stop attacking each other and start to work together to unite. You know, I went to a school with nuns and priests for 6 years. I went to St. Joseph's and Vanderhoof. And, you know, I was there with Clyde George from Dakelh, Cheryl George, Sarah Patrick, Colleen Patrick from Sycuz, Alfred, Billy Joe. There was lots of Native kids there. From Stella, Chris Heron, Miles Thomas, my friends. Those guys used to look out for me on the school bus. People try to pick on me. Miles Thomas and Chris Heron would protect me. And I saw Chris Heron get punched by the school bus driver. He pulled over and pulled him out of his seat and out by the bus. Punched him. And yeah, it's weird, right? Because that guy that punched him was my godfather, right? We're all very closely knit now. And I think to heal, it's going to take some coming together. It's going to take forgiveness. So, like, you know, growing up in those schools with that colonial teaching of religion, you start to learn. You read the Bible. I read books, and I read the Bible. And in there's a guy named Jesus. And it's funny, these schools, the Vatican, the Queen of England, all this stuff, they bring this religion, and they teach, they teach, you know, these tenets, the 10 Commandments, you know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt honor thy mother and thy father, thou shalt not commit adultery, and all that stuff, you know, shall not covet. What's going on? Test. They say all these things. They teach all these wonderful things, right? And I agree with that. I can agree with that. You know, gee, I lost my train of thought there. They teach you all these things, and then they turn around and they do things that are basically in the name of... Hello, is this on? They turn around, they do things satanic and Luciferian, in my opinion. And I personally read the Bible and I saw what Jesus said. And he said, if you mess with a child, it's better for you if you have a millstone hung around your neck and you were cast into the ocean. If you cause a child to stumble, it's better for you if you had a millstone hung around your neck and you were cast out into the ocean. And it also says something else. It says, okay, this is difficult. I'm going to try to work with this mic. The batteries are dying. It says that the way you measure it out, it'll get measured back to you. The way you measure it out, it's going to get measured back to you. We're not here to judge each other. We're not the judges. That's for the Creator. And the way you measure it out, it's going to get measured back to you. That means that it's important to forgive people. It's important to not hate. Hating is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. Yeah, there is a need for forgiveness, but there's not. It's going to take the truth. And so far, when people try to talk about the residential school children getting taken away and murdered and raped and all these things, people say, oh yeah, you know, that was then, this is now. But the thing about it is it's still a problem. It's still an issue, and it's still going on today, and we're just finding out about it now. So it's going to take the truth. And the truth, can you handle the truth? I can't. I can't handle the truth because it's too scary. But I can if you're with me. If you're holding my hand and you're standing beside me, I can handle it. And you can fill my heart with truth. Sichanelia Ngesi Ewetsa.
Thank you, Johnny. I know you're not chief and counsel, but you did pretty good for communications guy. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Davis Monk. from Dakelh Dene to say a few words on behalf of the community.
Hi everybody, I'm from Dakelh Dene. I am on Chief and Council and I'm here to show support. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out, for showing support for Nakasley, for putting this on. For everybody, thank you. I don't have a speech. I'm not great at public speaking, but I just want to say that I am a descendant of a survivor, my grandmother Peggy Murdoch. And she's told me so many stories about Lee Jack and how she survived, like how she's here today. Like if she wasn't here, I wouldn't be here. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming out and showing support. I'm not great with speeches again. Thank you.
Thanks for saving the batteries.
This wonderful event that's happening to recognize the children that lost their lives at the Kamloops Residential School. Today I wanted to remind people that in our language, in the Dakelh language, we don't have the words hate or racism. So that there is the essence of who we are as a people, and just to remind you that the spirit of excellence is always rising from the forgiveness and from being able to overcome the atrocities that we face as a people. And I commend the mothers, the Dakelh mothers that stood strong before us, that guided us with love, with integrity and with dignity throughout the generations. And to the mothers that stand here that are the survivors of residential school, Masi Cho Awetza.
Hello everybody. Just like to thank everybody for coming out and showing the support of all the other members and families who's been affected by residential school, and even outside of residential school, how many people were disrupted through ministry and through racism. It's a real thing everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. It's there, every school, every community. We all face it every day. And the only way is they say is to love each other and show respect to each other. And that's what my grandpa taught me, is you treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. If you start bullying somebody, well, they're gonna bully you back, or they'll bully somebody that you love and care for. So it always comes back around, so always got to respect each other and help each other. Masicho.
We'll do one more speaker and then do a song. I know this is quite emotional, so we'll go on. Mayor Fort St. James, Bob Motion, if you want to come say a few words.
On behalf of the council and staff of the District of Fort St. James and every resident in this community, it's with a heavy heart that I stand before you here today to say that we are shocked and dismayed at the news of the discovery of 215 children's remains at the Kamloops Residential School site. Fort St. James at one time housed a residential school, and many members of Dakelh, Dakelh, Binche, Yakuchi, and Nakasley nations experienced firsthand the unspeakable injustices inflicted by the residential school system. And as your friends and neighbors, we stand by your side today to offer our unqualified support in your time of need. The path to healing will be long and the journey difficult, but I can assure you We will be with you every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And call upon Margot Sagma.
Good afternoon. There's not much I'm going to say because it's been all said today. We're here to honor the children and the other children that are missing. I think one of the worst things is that someone came to my office and asked me, how can I find my brother? Wrote down the information. I looked at it. What am I going to do with it? Where I'm going to send it to? So I phoned everywhere. So it's up to our leaders to decide when they're going to start collecting data, because it's already coming in. We're already starting to recording the missing children, but there's nowhere to send it at the moment. And that just was so hurtful. The child was 7 years old, never came home. Parents went looking for him. They just told him, I don't know. We sent him home, but he never came home. So the heart of the siblings today, the families back then, we have to bring them home. We also have to remember, for the future, we have to be strong, because they have to do identification, modern technology to identify the children. If you remember, the Picton farm was only 50 of the women. It took over 5-7 years to do that. We're talking 215. So we're going to need a lot of funding, a lot of help for people and people that live on the reservations that have never seen their children. The siblings today are the ones that are going to start looking. And I cried as I looked at the information, thinking how hurtful, and not just one, we're talking hundreds. So our leadership is going to have to start ASP, not next year, not 2 years from now. We need a place where we can start sending our data forms and start the investigation. Because now I have my RG10s, and at least I can start looking for the name of the child. That's all I can do. But I can feel the pain that everybody's feeling, all the sad stories, all the traumas, everything that came up. Each and every one of you have been affected. It hurt your heart. Everybody cried, because you can look at your children and you can imagine sending your child away at 6 years old, alone, and they're hurting our children. Yes, it hurts, but we want our children home. We want them right away. If anyone has any more information about any of your missing siblings, see me, go to your band offices, go see a counselor, go see someone that we can start the process of doing the work. Ask each and every one of you inside your heart and send prayers up to the little angels that we found. And many more angels will be found. Must see.
Thank you. Okay, see.
Canada has kept its acts of genocide against its Indigenous people here for far too long. I feel strongly because of that. We need to insist that the United Nations and the Inter-American Commission be a part of the investigation into the missing and murdered children. This cannot be treated like another domestic Canadian problem, like the sexual abuse scandals, where not one charge was laid and not one perpetrator went to jail. In the case of exiling the Indigenous women from their birth communities, later on resulting in the homelessness of many of our Indigenous women, and also many of our Indigenous women going also missing and murdered. Canada investigated both of these complaints that they needed to be urged by the United Nations to do so because they wouldn't do it on their own. The RCMP in Canada never did those investigations until they were asked by the international community. In this case, we don't want this to happen again. We don't want this to be treated and investigated by Canada. Last night, 15 lawyers from Calgary made a statement that these deaths must be held accountable and must be treated as crimes against humanity, and the perpetrators must be put on trial and sent to jail. This gives me hope. While on the other hand, last night, Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner Murray Sinclair stated that he was told that the RCMP have begun questioning the Kamloops Indian Band team who did the work on finding the 215 children's graves. Murray Sinclair reported that the RCMP are using a very heavy hand in dealing with the Kamloops Secwepemc team. Let that sink in. We cannot let this be laid to rest until it's brought to the international stage. We want the world to know what Canada did to us. We will never forget, and we'll never get over this. It's a part of us and who we are. The mercilessness of Canada and its churches to steal our lands and wipe us out. Despite their planned goal, they failed, and that's why you and I are still here today. These past few days have been difficult ones for me. My mother and her siblings were kidnapped and sent to Lee Jack. My mom, Sally, her brother Paul Prince, her brother William Prince, her sister Sophie Prince, her sister Lena Prince, and her sister Seraphine Prince. Seraphine died at the school and she's buried there. Back then the children were, all the Indians were put on one side of the Lee Jack graveyard and the white people were put on the other side. Mom often wondered what happened to her sister Lena. Lena is one of the ones that never made it home. My mom often speculated that she was buried at Insana, their birthplace. But after last week's news and announcement of the children's graves, I strongly suspect that Lena is buried in an unmarked grave at Lee Jack. I spent this last week in a bit of a heap, going from crying to raging. Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner Murray Sinclair's words brought me back to reality. And what he said, Terry already repeated, that this is just the first site. There are many more sites to go. And so I realized that we have to start what I would call bootstrapping. And what I mean by bootstrapping is that We have to continue calling on the United Nations to be involved, and we need to continue calling this genocide, and we need to start using stronger language about what happened to us. I was listening to the CBC radio the other day, and I listened to a survivor of genocide, and when he talked about the children being seized, he didn't say they were removed. He didn't say they were taken away. He said they were abducted and kidnapped. And those are the words I'm going to start using, is our kids were abducted and they were kidnapped. There are other things that we have to do besides continuing on insisting for international observers and participation in investigations. Margot brought it up just before me. We have to start making lists of all the kids that we know of. I didn't know that Nick had 2 brothers that also died at the residential school. And Nick was very close with my father all through the years. And Aileen's right, it was something they never talked about. And I know that with my Aunt Lena, Uncle Paul often talked about Seraphine, and so did Uncle William, but they never mentioned Lena. My mama always remembered Lena. So you're gonna have to start methodically making lists in every village of kids that we know of or heard of. And I'm writing them down and making a formal list for this upcoming investigation. And we also have to really insist that the RCMP are simply not capable of conducting an investigation on our behalf, because the reason that the RCMP started out in this country was to assist this church and state in the abduction of our own kids. So they were complicit in that happened. So they simply cannot be part of the investigation. Thank you.
An organization from New York, Human Rights Watch, and you could Google it. It's called Those Who Take Us Away, Nulchukin. No word for the RCMP, the police. That's what we call them, Nulchukin. Those who take us away. They were part of this process of genocide with church and state to take the children away and bring them to those residential schools. Thank you, Mavis. And Luxamishu clan was what I just spoke at the start here, and on behalf of Lasilio clan, I have Paul Bird up here. Paul.
Merci. Howdy, everyone. First of all, let's give all the helpers that are keeping us comfortable here today a good round of applause. Yeah, Terry talked about the children. You could hear them play, and what a beautiful sound. As adults, it's our job to let the children be children. So going forward, we must teach our children to be children. And it's been a tough week for us, for me. My heart was heavy. Everyone's heart was heavy. It was an awakening. But what I see out here right now is a village of people willing to help each other. And that's what we need. We need our village to stick together. Let's go forward. Let's help each other out. Listen to the ones that are hurting, and let's save our children. I didn't want to bring this up, but like I'm a recovered drug and alcoholic, and I'm still a drug and alcoholic. I haven't done it for 10 years, but our message, we have to save our children. And it starts with us. I think us elders have to start that process of saving our children. I wasn't prepared for this. So I don't have much of a message. There's been lots of messages that you've heard today, important messages. I bring the message of let's save our children, the ones that we have now. Let's take them into the future. They are our future. Masi, it's
let's see. On behalf of Wabawuta Clan Song, or Bernadette Sam, is she here? No? Or Charlene? Yeah. Charlene, on behalf of my clan, Luxjabu is going to say a few words. Charlene Webb, if you'd like to come up, or Luxjabu.
Hari, I could not come home. I live in Kitsim-Kalem. I call that home. I call Fort St. James home. I feel numb. I'm scared to when I start to feel the anger. I know our hearts are heavy. It's been a terrible 15 months with this pandemic. And I'm just asking everybody here to reach out to our elders, family members. We're stuck in grief. And now we have permission to cry. And we have permission to release the anger we're holding. Terry asked the question, what is the next move? And in my mind and in my eyes and listening to what my mom and dad had taught us, the next move is we are part of the process. What my sister Mavis was alluding to is the RCMP cannot be part of the investigation because of the history that they played in removing our children. We as First Nations people need to be part of the process every step of the way so that documents cannot be buried, shredded, lost. And we call on all the villages, the cities and the mayors to support that First Nations people be part of this process. I'm asking the health directors, band managers, chief and council all across this province to advocate that we get funding so we can hire people to start the documentation of recording our family members who never came home. Because history is not going to repeat itself, and they're not going to say we can't find a document. The onus is on us now to collect that evidence, to have meetings with our family members that are still here with us and collect those names. Petition the federal government to promise the dollars they gave us, that we start having First Nations people involved in this. We need to learn our lesson, as Dad would tell us. Learn your lesson and don't ever do this. When you point your finger at someone else, you're pointing 3 fingers back at you. And all we're saying is we need to be part of the process, and we need our voices heard. And to ensure that the recommendations of truth and reconciliation are being fulfilled and met the mandate that they should be doing today. I am not looking for an apology from no federal government, from no diocese, from no bishop. They had their opportunity. I'm looking for justice of the children that were lost at these Indian residential schools. And again, I'm calling on the bank managers, health directors, chief and council to petition Indian Affairs to get us dollars so we can start our own gathering, fact-finding, and information gathering. Thank you.
Thank you for that strong message of not just gesture, but action. We need action to make this right for justice. So with that, I just want to share a crisis. There is a 24-hour crisis line out there. If you are feeling traumatized or want to talk to somebody, it's 1-866-925-4419. And if you do need some emotional support, there is a 24-hour line. So thank you, Charlene, and I call upon Nakalban Principal, Ms. Cheryl Peterson, to say a few words.
My name is Cheryl Peterson, and I'm the principal at Dakelh Elementary School. When I crossed Stewart River in 1993 into Nakaslii territory, I arrived as an uninformed, naive young woman who had received a limited and a twisted and a deceitful education on the history of the Indigenous population. As I became immersed in this community, I was fortunate to be embraced by elders, knowledge holders, friends, and people who became my family. I'm forever grateful for the gentle guidance and the patient teachings that they have bestowed upon me as I grew as a teacher and a community member, and as a mother, as I raised my sons to be strong Dakelh members. At this time, I feel shame. I feel shame that my European ancestors did not enter this ancestral territory, now known as Canada, with an open heart and an open mind, and refused the guidance and teachings that were undoubtedly available to them. I feel shame that the profession that I feel so passionate about is marred by this horrific history, that the beautiful children that I've had the greatest honor of teaching were not treated as the treasures that they are. And I'm sickened by the discovery of the 215 innocent lives that were stolen, and feel dread, knowing that realistically this is just the beginning of this shameful history being uncovered. The legacy of these children is that they have awakened not only a city or a province or a country, but the world, revealing a long denied truth. I apologize to the survivors who endured such abuse by those who abused their power, the descendants of the survivors whose lives have been forever altered by the effects of the residential schools, and all those who have been affected by the intergenerational trauma caused by residential schools. But I feel hope. This gives me hope. There's a beautiful school on the hill that gives me hope. When I started teaching in 1994, I had no idea the enormity of the history of education for Indigenous children. All I saw were classrooms of beautiful faces that we all wanted the best for. We had so much to learn, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So we continue to grow and strive every day to give our children an education that is current, relevant, culturally based, and trauma-informed. And I vow to continue to be a strong voice for Indigenous education, for accountability, for understanding, and for change. One of the quotes that I recently read was, "The days of thoughts and prayers are over, and it is time for accountability, honesty, policy, and change." Masi, Awetsa.
Thank you, Cheryl. Mrs. Burke? Not here? Or you forgot? Mr. Houghton? We went to school together. Principal of FSJ High School.
Thank you, Terry. It's nice to see you again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig Houghton, and I'm the principal at Fort St. James Secondary School. I was born and raised here in Fort St. James. I thank Aileen Prince for giving me the opportunity to share in this healing process. It is hard for any of us to comprehend the huge number of children that are lost. For myself, I needed to put this number into perspective that I could actually comprehend and understand. At our high school today, we have 270 students. 70% of those students are First Nations. So I thought what it would look like if all of a sudden 215 of those kids were not there. We would have empty classrooms. We would have lockers with no names on them, empty hallways. We wouldn't even be able to have a basketball team. And I guarantee you that I would have many, many phone calls and families coming saying, "Where are my children?" When I thought about this in these terms, I actually began to feel sick. My stomach was off and my legs actually felt a little weak. This was something I certainly had never experienced before, and I tell you, I didn't like it. It also made me realize that get this right here, hurt.
The first of its kind organization in Canada, and it was built by the First Nations people of BC to address the health disparity between First Nations in BC and the rest of Canada. We are overrepresented in so many categories, and we, as First Nations people, we grew tired of it, and the leadership got together and told Health Canada that we would take over health on our own, so that there would be nothing for us without us. And since that time, we worked very hard to support community health in communities. And when we heard on Thursday about Kamloops and the 215 children, it was devastating news. And the First Nations Health Authority has done much since then to support, the people in community to get through this crisis. And it's more than a crisis. I'm beyond words as to what to call it, but I just know that there's going to be a lot of help in the next days, weeks, months, and even years that's going to be needed to be able to get over this. And I think that the First Nations Health Authority, being your own organization, will be there for the people. But the best part about the First Nations Health Authority is that it's community-based and nation-driven. And so we are forever asking for input into how we can best serve you. And so going forward, I think that it's really important to keep that in mind, and I shouldn't lean on this podium. But one of the things about Kamloops that I just wanted to say as we begin our journey back and through this, is that it's really important. Like, we've heard so much about the 215 children, but it's really important to know where they came from. And when I say that, I mean that as First Nations, as Dakelh people, one of the first documented, of the Dakelh people was how we treated our children, and that we kept our children's spirits innocent as possible for as long as possible. We did not talk about adult things in their presence. And we were really mindful of the fact that we had to keep them innocent. We didn't hit our children, and we didn't yell at our children. And one of the observations that Father Maurice made was that if you were in a room with a bunch of children and Dakelh, like adults and children, and you were observing them, you could never tell which child belonged to which parent, because the children were so loved by everybody that all children were treated equally the same by every person that they encountered. And the other thing was that my father told me a story about when he was little and when he began to school, he learned about biological relatives. And so he learned about grandpa and grandma that were biological. And in his world, all the people of that age were called grandpa and grandma. That was what you called them. And so he really thought about it, and he thought about it, and he thought, I wonder who my biological grandparents were. And then he finally settled on this two that he was sure that must be his biological grandmother, and because she treated him extra special compared to all the rest of them. And then he went and he talked to his mom, and he asked his mom, is that my biological grandmother? And she said, no, it wasn't. And she told him who his biological grandmother was. And so I just think that it's really important. It's really important to know where we came from as we journey back to that. And it's important to know how those children were when they were received into care at the residential schools. The pain, so it compounds the pain. And so I just really thank you for all attending this event and acknowledging the innocence of 215 children, but we have to create meaning out of what's happened. We have to create meaning so that we can start the journey of healing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen, and we'll move on to, we have two students coming here, Tyrell Howell and Cassidy McDougall. Students that will be coming up to say a few words, and that'll be it for me, right?
Hello everybody. I would like to thank everybody for being here to honor the children that were found on the grounds of the Kamloops Residential School. I would like to start by introducing myself. My name's Cassidy McDougall. I am a student from Fort St. James Secondary School, and I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation of British Columbia. When I heard the tragic news about the 215 bodies found on the grounds of the Kamloops Residential School, I was in shock. I was in disbelief because of how these children were all undocumented and their graves were all unmarked. It makes me wonder how many more are still out there waiting to be brought home. The variety of ages also astounded me. To know the youngest found was only 3 years old was truly heartbreaking. I give my condolences to those who were found and their families. This is a great reminder that the past issue is still here today and is not forgotten. After learning about residential schools in class and how they have affected society, I hope we can have an open mind to understand what the impact of residential schools have laid upon those who attended, and to know that those experiences can affect many people around them, including family, friends, and their community. I have hope that the children's identities can be found in the near future, bringing both closure and peace to them and their families. I would also like to see support and help for those who are still looking for the loved ones they have lost. My hopes and prayers are for making a better future for our society. Merci, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyra Howell. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone who gathered here today on behalf of the 215 children who couldn't be here with us today. I hope our past ancestors found in Kamloops, British Columbia found peace on the other side of life. Their little souls were full of great potential, and I give my condolences to the families who had to grieve and are grieving again, not even knowing the reasons their beloved children never arrived home safely. Their lives were taken far too soon, and the cruel acts of residential schools affected the generations these children could have produced. These little warm hearts had no room to give hatred towards others. All they wanted to do was live in their traditional ways and pass it down generation by generation. It breaks my heart knowing they were forcefully taken from their parents and their peers, who were supposed to teach them how to provide for themselves in ways that have been passed on for years. These beautiful children were taken from all of this to go to a school where they were supposed to be educated and cared for, but were stripped of the people they were proud to be. These children weren't respected enough to receive headstones or even have their families given the knowledge that they weren't with them anymore physically. My great-grandmother, Mildred Martin, is a residential school survivor. She's one amazing and influential person and has always made sure I was on track with my education and sports. Knowing that she is a survivor who didn't forget how to be herself is truly amazing to me. To this very moment, I carry the lessons she has taught me since I was a young child. I can't say enough about how proud I am that our traditional ways didn't forcefully die in the hands of the government of Canada. If they had their wish granted of assimilating First Nations from society, I wouldn't be the person I am today. The gratitude I feel for my parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents will live on to the day I pass. There's a great amount of people who believe residential schools are a part of our history and fully in the past, but I hope this is a wake-up call that it isn't. There are survivors who drank their life away just to forget the nightmare that they were put through. The last residential school closed 24 years ago. It is not in our past, and the government handing out money to reserves isn't going to make it right. Canada can do better to make society one again, and we are here to make that change.
Masi tabe masi cho nkesi. With that, my duty's done here. And lastly, I just want to say once again, thank you. It's good to be home, and thank you for the invite, Chief Prince, for allowing me to MC and say a few words. And I know we all want to go down to Kamloops. That may happen one day in the future. So Cook P. Roseanne Casimir is on my BCAFN board of directors, and I've been talking to her last week, and she appreciates the amount of support, but there's far too many people going to the site right now and to the residential school. I believe there's a convoy tomorrow, a huge convoy of trucks or vehicles going by. That's a good show of support, but eventually down the road there will be an opportunity to head down to Kamloops, but we are in the middle of a pandemic. We're getting out of it. There is a foreseeable future in terms of breaking this pandemic and loosening the restrictions. But at the same time, I know we got to be careful. So, and she also, stated that it's only been a week, just over a week. It's really early. She wanted to take that message out to other communities out there. Continue your support ceremony. We're really early. There will be a written report in mid-June, and hopefully we get better ideas. She is planning on what next steps to do in terms of these sites. And I know there's been a really outpouring to search these other residential schools like LeJac, Port Alberni, perhaps St. Mary's, St. Joseph's, and these other residential schools. So once again, Masi, Tabe Masi Cho, really thank you for all of you for coming out, and on behalf of the BCAFN and my board of directors staff, I have a bunch of staff here. I just want to hold my hands up to all the organizers, all the orange shirts, from Nakasley for doing this, and perhaps the mayor and council were part of this, setting this up, and the schools. It's really important discussion. And lastly, this isn't the end of it. And like Justice Murray Sinclair, we need to prepare ourselves for other findings in the near future. And with that, Nkesi, I love you. Masicho.
I just want to thank Regional Chief Terry Teegee for emceeing our event today. And I really want to thank our staff for pulling this together so quickly. I think we started on Tuesday to pull this together, and our staff went above and beyond. We've got people from Coastal GasLink brought some stuff. Centerra Gold. The schools made some chili. I'm gonna forget people. I know I am. This thing's driving me crazy. But I just want to say that I so appreciate the words that we heard today. I know this is going to be a hard road because this is not the end. This is the beginning. And I really want to encourage our people, our Dakelh, to stick together, to stand together, because we are strong together. And we've got so many allies and friends that are willing to help us. But as chiefs, councils, community members, society members, we really need to ensure that we are using our voices and using them strongly in the days to come. When other discoveries are made, it's going to be even harder. It's going to be even harder because it's going to hit closer to home. So just be with each other, talk with each other, cry with each other, rage with each other if you need to. But keep together, stick together, because we can get through this if we're doing it together. And I just want to thank all the children for coming and just providing that background beautiful noise that we hear. And I absolutely think children are the best thing in the world. And I just want to thank the drummers, the singers, the people have offered their prayers, the people that have offered their support. Our staff just, I hold my hands up to you guys. You guys make us look so good. Thank you. We're gonna open the mic and the floor for drumming and singing. And we have an elder from Yakuchi that would like to come and say a few words. I'm going to release our panel up here so they can come and enjoy the music and maybe join in as well. And we have, oh, okay. They're gonna do a couple of songs first. So I'm going to turn the mic over to the drummers, and then we'll, as people want to come up and speak, they can come up, have a seat up here, and then we'll introduce you as you.
To try to really get the meaning of the songs down. And so she was like really hurt and she was mad, and the song came and she was jaying around, and that means like she's like real mad. And it's not to be mad, but we wanted to, no disrespect to the song, but we wanted to change the song because we wanted to lay some of the stuff to rest a little bit. So instead of like Nakazli and Not Lewadan and Steleko and Stella, we're gonna change it to Kamloops and Jack 215 and Grief and Loss, so that we could help them get home. So it's my grandmother's song, and it comes from Not Lewadan, and I know that these songs are never ever supposed to be ours. I mean, like, it's never supposed to be mine. It's supposed to be ours. The Creator just lent you this song for you to share because it's medicine. And so I share the song with you and share it with whoever you want to share it with. So I love you, and yeah, okay, goodbye.
Switch it off. There you go.
He watches them take our young generation, watches them take our Indian nation. I wrote that poem in 1986, the first time I was in jail. I got 18 months in jail, and ever since I went to jail, I started seeing our people come in every day. There was new Indians coming in every day. And as I watched all of the heartache and all the pain and broken homes, people crying on the phone because they were taken away from their children, or someone else killed somebody because they were drunk and they don't remember. You know, I really thought we were broken people and that we were lost compared to such a rich history that I thought we had, that I know we had somewhere. The loss of language. One day, these two brothers came in from Dakelh Dene. They were in different units. Dakelh Dene, yes, they started speaking to each other in their language. But down the hallway, could hear them really clear. And I started laughing and going, we never lost. We're never lost yet. Even though we're under the guards, even though under the ministry, even though all those things were taken away from us, we're still strong. We still have a chance to revive our culture. And that's why I made that into a warrior song. And there was a young guy named Gordon Arnatol up in Glasden. We were doing a little culture camp, and one day he says, "Guy, check this out." And he hit his drum and he started singing out a rap song. And I just stood there and I thought, wow, is that ever cool? I want to do that. And right away that warrior song came to my mind, and that's how the warrior song came to be. So I dedicate that into all of the hard, the dignity and pride of our people, and the hard struggles that we go through, and then the revival of our language, our culture, and our people. And I thank everybody here today for that. Let's see. We're just gonna do another song, the water song. This water song we just learned, and it talks about, well, it doesn't say any words, but the reference to the water song is that when you go travel on the river in your boats, it's nice and calm. You know, the water is really slow and you're traveling along the river. And then when you come to rapids or fast water, you start going through fast water and stuff, and it gets kind of dangerous and pretty loud. So that's what the song refers to. Going through calm water, going through rough water, and coming back through the calm water. So even though we're going to go through this hard time, we're still going to end up in the calm water, because that's our way.
Howdy, Wesley Mitchell. It's an honor to be on the Nakaslii territory. To be part of this ceremony is heartwarming. There's hardships, and this next song that I'd like to have the children stand up with us in front of us, and they're our future, right? And this is about the 215 children that have been set free and started this movement. So again, thank you very much. It's an honor to be brought up with Guy and sing this song. It's a very powerful. Water is life, and we are all here to heal, and we're all here to move forward. Love you all my relations.
Nostri utarti, nos che sacerden, abanarten, lo che sono tite, e c'è testa, e incarno sessi. Tenere di avisa utase undo, la crisi, ne pare ciò hundlein le, diengat, na yaga, hundlein laktosto der inden in det niendo, ani no resni vedesni, ninli. Apartly in the window, doing at Nasaya. The last cut, the bar is signed, when in a bacha. As wow, not so no hide. So, a corner thing, so, with a nasa fiade. Like this, Ahana, and yes, another still. Until and uncertain things. Until now, this law has wanted. In a very dusty attending cut. Tell Technan data and it's 9 lahatne. 215. And the health technician in the cocktail. As well. And it's another state left. So, short another thing, it's another thing. As I went as a young cartoon as he left. Doing got 2 inches. Say I didn't need me as husband as let's go and look. Each I can say I. The planet at the Nabadile. Who sent it who in the BC? So not this and a hut. The stone token and doing it Nasaya in there. The last cut has say bit a higher tea. At the Nari Johnson, 12 persons, and then appealed to them. And get back me. And they get the show nasty. And get they ask you sit. Who sit, but only low is low. Is the greatest word, the last word he met. So that's why I'm speaking about it. So now you have to believe in him. I'm not forcing you. I'm just explaining to you to do what you like if you know your kids. After your kids, they grow up, and their turn to speak your language. So that's why it goes from nation to nation. That's why I'm speaking today. That's why I come down from my pushchair. And I'm 93 years old. I still work. I work, make camp. I make smokehouse, but no dry meat yet. Yeah, you speak to your children, good words, and leave them smoking and all them drugs alone, drink, people dying out with it. You should notice it. That is needed what suits us. No, it's chaos at the end. And doing got no cases as a salt is a payan gehiki. And as you can let a digit in the Sudanea. She was getting me. That's who I know to see. The pouch and Asafia. She is no what to sleep with us. That's who I listen. Must see. What's that? William Tape Sudini. Very good words sent out. I had it in my mind too. My name's Mildred Martin, those who don't know me. I belong to the Silio clan. And I was mostly raised in Lijac when I was young. I went to my parents sent me to Lijac when I was about 8 years old. And it must have been about 1935. It was the same year that in Lijac that I got sick one time, and I didn't know very much myself because I didn't know how to speak English, not even yes or no. I just spoke my language, my carrier language, all the time. But I really got sick there one day, and I was just throwing up, and my sister Betsy was older than me. She was there, and my auntie Matilda Tiley was there looking after us. They took me right away to the sisters and they rushed me upstairs to the... They put me to bed, and I was getting sick. I didn't know. I was very young. I was small, and I didn't know what was happening. And they told me, stay in bed, don't walk around, don't get out of bed, they told me. There, I didn't know I had the measles. All the kids were getting it. The kids were sick. Everybody was getting sick, and I didn't know very much myself. And I was in the high dormitory, the highest one. And there's two, one for the smaller kids and one for the bigger kids downstairs. 3 dormitories. The children were all getting sick with the measles. It came out just like that. All of a sudden, everybody was getting sick. And the sisters were just working, sitting with us and watching us, keeping us in the dark, and telling us there was some kids still running around, even they had the measles. They told them, stay in bed, keep warm. You're gonna die if you don't listen. That's what their sisters told them. They were quite strict with them. But the kids, you know how kids are. They don't want to listen, but they were sick. I was pretty sick. I stayed in bed and throwing up, and the only time we get up was go to the washroom, but the floors were really cold. We had to obey the one sister sit in a dormitory with each dormitory, watching all the kids. It must have been really tough for the sisters. They work really hard, and I could hear the sister with her rosary. She must have been sitting there in the dark and praying for us, for all the children. See what prayers could do. You pray, prayers are so strong. We have to, we really have to pray a lot. It's true that we missed so much with the church, going to church these days. It's on account of that COVID-19. We still gotta keep on praying so that we won't get it around here. We pray for our children and for ourselves. That's all I do. I'm so tired of staying home and locking myself in my house. But I still keep on praying. It's true, everything what William said, it's true. In 1918, there was that flu going around that time too. Our parents and older people, they went out to their trap lines. They went out to their trap lines to trap, and most of them got sick out there in the trap line. And they talk about going to the priest. They got real sick and they start coming back to town. They say they want to see the priest, want to go see a priest. They got really sick with that 1918 flu. It's something the same as what's going around now. Never know what's gonna come. Some of them people, they're coming back home. They died on their way back, coming back home. I don't know just who they were, but there were so many people. They just found their bodies on the roadside coming home. See what happens to the disease. You never can tell what's gonna come next. That's why you just gotta keep praying. Never mind your drugs or your alcohol. Forget all that stuff. You see how many kids, how many young people are dying out now from drugs, bad drugs, and your alcohol. You don't listen to your elders anymore, young people. Look at all the young people are dying out now. Instead, look, I'm 93 years old, me. I'm still doing beadwork and sewing and knitting. I stay home, I got nothing to do, and I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go outside anywhere, do anything in the public. This is about my first time that I get out of the house like this. It's so important for you. I ask all the young people, quit your drugs,
and your alcohol will never help you in any way. Look at all the young people that are dying out. They just find them dead in bed, most of them. I hope you all listen really good about that. We love you all, that's why we want you to be the leaders of our communities, you young people. When you have children, you raise them and you train them and you teach them everything. Teach them how to pray. That's one important thing that you never forget is praying. I hope God would listen to us. Look at what happened. I don't know what happened in Kamloops. I heard about that and I felt so bad about that, and I don't know what year it was. It must have been through measles. That's what I keep saying. It must be from measles that they died of. The poor sisters work so hard for the kids. I don't know what else to say about it. It's so shocking news.
Merci.